Well, welcome everyone. Today we have a wonderful guest that I would like to introduce you to and just share. She's going to share with you her wonderful experience, and we're going to go into some deeper questions so you can really get a feel for the type of wonderful healing work that she's involved with. So, welcome, Tekhiyah. How are you today?
I'm doing great. I'm
Good.
so grateful to be here with you.
Wonderful. So just to give you a little bit of background, Takia has a business. Her business is called Takia. I'm sorry, we're gonna have to
Yeah.
start over. Oh, okay, I have to. I guess I have to edit that out. Um, what do you
Yeah,
think?
we
We
can
should
just
start over
we,
or just
we can start over or just edit it out. Because
okay? I don't. Go ahead.
yeah, it's gonna
All
be
right.
easy just edit it out. It's not gonna
Okay. So, healing tea baskets.
hmm
Basket is the
Yeah.
name of Takia's business, but so within that business, she does a lot of different things that I would love for her to share with us. In addition to having a healing and wellness retreat and business around built around healing, it's so interesting because Takia has lived in over 5 countries and she's currently residing in Kenya. And so I am really fascinated about this whole experience because I know, like, at least from, on the Western side of the world, there's an interest in people who want to, leave the West, experience life in other places. And it's wonderful to be able to have a guest who can talk to us about her experience as a Black woman living in multiple places and experiencing and working with people, and particularly women from, different places, but similar backgrounds and similar experiences. So I wanted to just open that up and just share with everyone a bit about Takia. But I'd like for you just to tell us, Takia, more about the healing work that you do and how you've been able to help women in various places, but particularly all over the world.
Well, my journey began in the UK. I was born and raised in the UK and to Antiguan parents. And when I had the opportunity to, at different times in my childhood, I had opportunity to go visit Antigua. And when I got to about 19, I was like, I definitely want to live here. It was just a very different experience to be amongst the majority of people, being a Black person and just fitting in as opposed to, uh, being a minority, so to speak. And so, the fact that I had so much family there and um, it just seemed like an a natural thing for me to do. I did go to university in the UK, and I think um, my it's like that was really my first introduction to Black history. Like there's so many groups and different things you get exposed to, and I joined the African Caribbean Society, and that's when I really learned about my roots, and I realized so much had been missing, that I really didn't, I wasn't aware about. So it just created a different consciousness in me. So again, I think that's why, having the experiences where I went to Antigua and I was felt more comfortable, and I didn't realize that I was uncomfortable, until I went back to the UK after, spending, maybe 10 weeks or so um, there in Antigua. And so I think that's when I was like, oh, I think I'd like to experience that. So when I finished literally 5 days after I did my finished my degree, I was like, okay, I'm going to take some time out, and I thought it would just be 6 months, end up being about 8 years. And so I I call it like a de-anglicizing, because it's like growing up in England to Caribbean parents, you're kind of bicultural anyway, because there's one way of acting outside, but there's another way you act at home, you know. And so, it was an opportunity to experience that other side, by being really immersed in Caribbean culture, which was, you know, for me, it was just like, why would they leave sun, sand, and sea? So I really enjoyed the experience. It definitely felt like home, and and again, it was a very healing experience because of the sun, because of that exposure to nature. Being able to connect with the water, and again, that level of sunshine I'd never experienced before. I grew up in the wintertime. I was born in the wintertime in England, and generally it feels like it's winter there most of the time. It's very, has a very overcast feel to it most of the time. So being in that bright sunshine, I realized I could wake up early. It's like my whole energy was different when I was there. And
Mhm.
so it was while I was there, I became vegan, and I traveled for a bit when I lived in Israel for a while, where I really got immersed in a holistic lifestyle, basically, and really learning how to live, creating more peaceful interactions. I want to say, learning how to incorporate peace as a lifestyle in dietary, but learning how to heal on different levels, learning community living, because to live communally, you really have to understand how to function in different environments where you can keep the peace as well. But not necessarily as a peacemaker, because it's not like you can't say what your needs and wants are, but more as in respect for people's space and that kind of thing. That form of keeping the peace. That's what it was.
Well,
And
in
so I,
Israel, can you tell us of, because I think it's fascinating. You don't hear that often about Black people living in Israel, right?
yeah,
So, love to hear. I think our audience would be interested in just finding out, like, what was that like? What specific, were you a part of a community there? Or, how did you end up in Israel? Because right now, too, Israel is such a hotbed and people
hotspot.
don't think of
Yeah,
peace. You definitely don't think of
yeah.
peace when you think of
No,
Israel. So I just wanted to kind of delve into that a little bit more to get a better understanding.
right. So I lived as part of the African Israelite community, and it's like we are like the Black people there in general. Let me put it like that. Are like hidden. They're the hidden ones. So you never see the black face of Israel. When they talk about Israel, you see a white face. You never see a black face. But historically, Israel is part of Africa. It's only after they put the Suez Canal, which divided the so-called Middle East from Africa, that they made that differentiation. But you can literally walk. It's like a few feet. The Suez Canal is literally like a few feet, and you could walk that distance, you know. And so historically, it is Africa, and it was full of Black people. There are indigenous um, Bedouins and Muslims and other people of African descent that have never lived anywhere else. And so you would never know that until you go and you go through the streets of Jerusalem, or go into certain areas where that's all you see. And so it was very much a powerful experience to see that, and to be part of that experience, to tour different parts of Israel and see the indigenous African presence there. and knowing that as the African Israelites, we are also um, um, part of that history. Our roots are also there because um, the incursions of Europe into those lands pushed the original people into southern parts and western parts of Africa. you know. And so that's why you find Hebrewisms in South Africa and in West Africa and in East Africa, because we were pushed out of Israel into other lands in Africa. And and hence when slavery comes around, some of these some of the peoples from those times were the well, I want to say the foreigners, I can't think of a better word to say it, but those were probably the ones that were put into slavery because they didn't naturally belong there, you know?
Hmm.
And so you'll find when they talk about the lost tribes of Israel, it was probably our people that were scattered out of Israel that were sent off to the West, or picked up from the various slave castles around Africa and sold into slavery. And so we ended up in the West and, disenfranchised, disconnected from our roots, our culture, and we are turned, our soul is transformed into a whole different uh, type of person. And we carry some of those traumas too. We carry those ancestral traumas, those generational traumas from slavery. Sometimes we're doing certain things, we don't know why we're doing it, but we've been conditioned
Yes.
certain things, and we don't always know why we do.
Right.
Just like there's a story that goes around that of a black woman. She's cooking a Sunday roast and she's cutting the corners off, and so the granddaughter asks, "Oh, Mama, why'd you cut the sides off?" She says, "Oh, I don't know. I just do it like that because my mother did it like that."
Hmm.
Right? And it
Hmm.
comes to when they go back, they realize the only reason the grandmother cut the sides off is because she didn't have a pan big enough. So that becomes a tradition in the family because that's what's seen. And so you end up cutting off the pieces because you see that. It doesn't mean that the subsequent generations can't change. Just like in my family, you realize certain diseases uh, become inherited because it's a lifestyle, not because they continue a lifestyle, not because
Exactly.
it's actually in the genes.
Yes,
It's because there's a lifestyle that is perpetuated. So, for instance, my
absolutely.
mother, she had fibroids. In her 40s, she had a hysterectomy because she couldn't get her fibroids under control. When my older sister, when she reached maybe in her 30s, she had fibroids. But when I got to my 30s, there's no sign of fibroids because I changed my diet long before, so I didn't trigger the same genes that would create the environment to create fibroids.
Yeah, I can
So
totally relate to that because I have a similar story with in my family, diabetes and hypertension, which, I think in a lot of our families exist. And when I was around in my mid 20s, I said, that's not going to be me. May have other issues, but that's not going to be me. And so I also changed my diet to a plant-based diet. And from that time on, that was never an issue for me when I go to whenever I've had a checkup or whatever. But it is one of those things, and I totally agree with you. We know that genetics make us who a part of who we are. However, I think we over rely on that idea of, well, because my mother had this particular disease, then I'm going to have it, or my parents had this particular disease, then I'm going to have it. And that's so not true. It's all about
yeah,
what you said before, turning them on, creating a lifestyle that either turn on the gene or turn off the gene, and
exactly.
it's in our control to be able to impact that. But I also wanted to, as we're talking about this, and you talked about the ancestral piece, I think
Mm-hmm.
it's important. I'd love to hear about, your thoughts and how you see that showing up in terms of things being handed down from one woman to the daughter. So the feminine aspect of it, how does that trauma get handed down? Examples of trauma that gets handed down ancestrally from one generation to the next generation.
I think a good example of that is, especially in the African continent, and it's not that it only happens here, but it's you just hear the stories more here, and it is highlighted more if women move from Africa to the West, and that would be female genital mutilation. And so in some of our research of that, or some of the stories I hear about that, it's women that do it to women. And originally it was done to as to my recollection anyway, I haven't researched it recently, but to my recollection, it was originally done to keep the price of a woman high. So because she couldn't be tampered with, she couldn't be uh, molested, so to speak. And so basically they would sew up, there's different forms of female genital mutilation. So one of the forms is that you basically sew up the vagina, so that it can't be penetrated. So then that would keep her price high. And like I said, there are many types of it, but originally I think it was done by Arab in the Arab world, and so that came into indigenous African cultures, is that Arabs came and occupied more places in Africa. That was something that was that was done, and but it's now women that do it to other women or to their children, or it's like they have it as a rite of passage, but now there's so many people against that happening. And so that is definitely an ancestral trauma that is passed down as a tradition, but we're not it it's not it literally takes away a woman's pleasure, and they're created to have pleasure, to recreate. It's like a natural part of the whole process, is that we are drawn to it because it feels good. It feels good, and we're supposed to procreate to carry on the generations. That's just part of how nature was created. And so for it to be something that's passed on to other women, that's a cycle that's beginning to break as women become more aware of it and raise their consciousness, that is not something that should be continued.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm just thinking as you're talking about that in terms of I wonder like where historically, and you mentioned the Arab influence in that coming about as part of, now as part of our culture or the African culture, which we are all a part of. But even before then, I was thinking, I wonder when that shift happened because we're living in such a patriarchal society, and I'm sure that had a
Oh,
bearing
definitely.
on the traditions that, and it still has a bearing on how we function within our divine feminine energy. And just really would be curious to see like when did that shift happen when
Yeah.
we went from more of a balanced society to more of a male dominated patriarchal society and the implications of that on us then and now,
Yes.
and how that plays out.
Okay. Well, things are. We're in these as the cycles of the Earth, the planets go through different ages. We're about to embark on the age of Aquarius, where the masculine and feminine energies are coming into balance, and I think that's why we're seeing. We're witnessing a rise of the female energy, because we have to bring that patriarchal and matriarchal systems back into balance. And throughout these different ages, where when it was the Piscean age, or the Aries age before that, it was very much more about, I think that, if I'm not mistaken, the Aries age may have been the more matriarchal, and as we moved into the Piscean age, that's when the patriarchy started to rise, and there were a lot of witch burnings and a denial of the natural things, which is the essence of woman. The creativity, the intuition, the just the natural nature of Mother Earth. Was and her voice was started to be denied. You know, and
Hmm.
so and so, through these different ages, that's when, again, different beliefs get embedded. And so that's why it's so hard. It's so rooted. The belief systems are so rooted because these are literal ages, like thousands of years of conditioning to behave a certain way. And as our consciousness rises and these shifts and our awareness, as we tune back in, as we understand that, it's as simple as tuning back into nature, we can reconnect our feminine essence, um, that we partake in the shift. And it's a natural thing. It's really beyond our control because it's in the planets. It's in, it's really like a cosmic evolution that's occurring, but we are witness. We are just witness to this evolution, and we feel, some of us are more sensitive than others, so we feel like a calling. We feel it, differently. So that's as much as I can give on it without having researched like too deeply. I've really just skirted those historical bits, but that's my understanding of that. It's really beyond, you know, uh, what we may think is just necessarily man-made.
Right,
But
right.
yeah, these are just ages of the evolution of humanity. That, okay, we'll try it the feminine way. Then we're like, oh, the men didn't like that, so let's try the patriarchal way. Oh, we didn't like that, so now let's see what it's like if we come to balance. Can we?
Yeah,
But the other thing that's key about that is that we each a man and a woman both have feminine and masculine energy. So part of that
absolutely.
transformation is that we learn to bring to harmony that feminine essence and that masculine energy within each of us, because that in itself creates a tipping point in humanity, because we come at peace. Nothing happens, as Michael Jackson says, the man in the mirror, it starts with me. Everybody starts with a single one. And yes, we might be able to influence 10, and that 10 may be able to influence 1,000, but it starts with one. It starts with yourself. And nobody can rescue anybody. We can hear information, we can learn all kind of things that, but unless we actually change, unless we actually implement the changes, knowing it's not enough. you know
Yes,
the power is
absolutely.
the power is in taking action. The power is in actual change and transformation. And yes, it's hard. It's hard. It's difficult. It's challenging because we have to challenge so many layers of beliefs, which is not just in our lifetime. It's from our parents and their parents and generations before us, you know?
Right. Well, that gets to the point, a point too, where you're talking about the transformational work that has to be done. And you have a wonderful way of working with people in your business, doing, your one-on-one coaching plus workshops. Let's talk about, some of the transformational work that you help women to actually get to that point of transformation, and seeing that that they're not where they want to be. I'm sure a lot of us know that anyway, that we have this feeling. We might not know what it is and why we're feeling a certain way, but tell me some practical ways and the ways that you work with women to help sisters uncover and get to that point where they uncover their wounds, or just being able to identify them, and then using that as a platform to or springboard into transformation.
Okay, well, in general, mostly I start people off with their nutrition because everybody has it. you know, and because a lot of our wounds show up physically, you know, so it will show up, as we mentioned, as fibroids or as high blood pressure or diabetes, you know, it will show up. But all these things have an emotional component, you know? And so I'm very much into holistic health. And so even if someone comes to me and they're seeking a solution or a diet or a detox, because I also do detox kits and gut health um, kits as well. Um, you know, I always weave a way to get into the emotional aspects so they can be more aware of themselves. Okay, because a lot of time it's very symbolic of something that's happened in their past because we're not taught how to handle our emotions. Generally, we just push it down somewhere and it stores, you know, because our body is our subconscious mind. Okay. And so we store it in our subconscious mind, which is some part in our body, wherever it most resonates. And and then over time, if we don't deal with it, it becomes more and more uh, dense. And so it can manifest at some point in a disease. It might start as a discomfort, you know, and every disease, every discomfort, every emotional manifestation, there has a belief that goes with it. Okay. And so I really try to help through the coaching that I do, through the Rebirth You coaching uh, program that I provide. I help women find the connection between their physical uh, issues or their challenges and the beliefs that they're carrying, and try to, through different tools, because there are many different tools we can use, and we create daily practices um, to to activate another part of self, you know, to activate another part of self where you can come to terms with things that may have happened and create new beliefs. So then, with those new beliefs, your cells have an opportunity to recreate themselves with a new understanding, new nourishment, not the old one that keeps repeating. And so, therefore, the wound continues, you know? And so, um, you know, so I deal with my goal as a wounded healer myself, you know, I've really um, gone through many, you know, as we all do, but all of us don't necessarily have the calling to help others heal. You know, I use my own journey as a to because I feel like, oh, if it worked for me, this might work for you too. And not everybody, everything that I do might not work, you know. But again, there are so many healers, there are so many different practitioners over the years. And, you know, one thing that might work today might not work in 2 weeks' time. And which is why, you know, having that variety. So because I realized just in my, you know, my practice of stretching and doing yoga, how emotional releases will come through stretching my body. You know, I
Mhm.
might have a terrible knot in my neck, you know, and a part of my back that, you know, and I've been to the physiotherapist, I've been to the doctor, and they'll say, oh, there's nothing wrong. They've done what they can do. And generally, they end up hurting you more until you come back in yourself and realize there's an emotional release that has to take place. That can only happen if you stretch, you know, unless you go into certain body movements, you won't release. You know, so there
Mhm.
are many different tools that can be used at different times. One might be emotional freedom technique, you know, where you use certain acupuncture points around your face and torso. And when you tap into them, saying simple things like, I love and approve of myself. Even though this bad thing happened to me, I love and approve. Even though I feel nervous, I love and approve of myself anyway. Even though, you know, and you know, just you know, simple examples, but by tapping on these different points, and it shifts the intensity of the trigger, you know? So there's different triggers that we have that will cause us to be anxious or that remind us of a trauma or a situation, event, or that happened before. And by tapping into our energetic system, we can release the memories and come to terms and bring peace into the soul, you know, and reprogram the subconscious mind to let it know that it's safe, And at the end of the day, the nervous system is designed to protect you from harm. So, and trauma is held in the nervous system. So if you don't feel safe, if the nervous system is registered something is unsafe to you, it will protect you at all costs.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
So the key
absolutely.
is that to bring safety, back to the nervous system so that you can step out and do things that you used to do effortlessly, but because you experience a trauma, you're nervous to do that or to shine your light, or like me, the trauma I had this morning, the nervousness, the
Mhm.
anxiety, that just in preparation for these things, because it's been a while since I've been visible, since I've been uh, you know shared myself publicly, because of going through my own levels of rebirth and recalibration, and and becoming who I am now, accepting who I am now as a result of the different things that we go through in life.
Yes,
I hope
absolutely.
this has answered your question. I'm not even
Yeah,
sure. I feel
it's
like
very, absolutely. I certainly appreciate you sharing, even um, your personal journey in a sense, and the tools and techniques that you use to heal yourself and to create balance, and that we all can use. Because I love to use emotional freedom technique. Like you said, because we are energy as well as matter. Those points that you're tapping on are just energetic points that are just going deep into the body and sending messages to the subconscious to
yeah,
help us to let go and release, or do
yeah,
whatever. And I totally just want to affirm what you're saying in terms of those techniques. And I know for myself too, movement is important. And
yeah,
what I find is that walking in nature, just going
yeah,
out, and some days just going out and walking in nature, you have the sun shining on you, you have, the elements of nature all around you. And it's like they're just supporting you as you're
yes,
walking through nature. And then you're able to sometimes just release things that you weren't able to release in other ways. So there are a multitude of ways I know to release the things that we have, the traumas that we have trapped in our bodies. And thank you. I just want to say thank you so much for sharing that. I also wanted to just get into for a moment. I know you probably just didn't wake up and say, "Oh, I want to be a healer." Most people don't. So, how did you how did you embark upon um, the journey of being a healer? How did you get there to this point in your life?
um, wow. I think I mentioned earlier that I think I'm a wounded healer. And as a wounded healer, it's like you basically realize that you're guided on a path of uh, of healing yourself, and that compassion that comes from doing that work, you realize that this could be useful for somebody else, you know. And so because when I was involved in a near fatal road accident when I was 19 years old, and which left me hospitalized, and I had internal injuries. I had a fractured pelvis. I had lacerations all around my body. Um, and something I rarely talk about is that I was also pregnant at that time. And so, it has that whole experience had dimensions because I didn't know I was pregnant. And so there was a lot of shame involved because I didn't know what my parents would say. And so, and I feel like I I instigated an accident to happen to me because I didn't want to deal with facing my parents and the shame and what was I going to do. I recently started my university course when, when this, accident happened, and so there was so many dynamics at the same time because again, that at that time I had the most amazing year of my life. I had aced all my exams. I traveled to Antigua when I decided, oh, I think I'm going to live here. When I finished all of that stuff, all that study stuff, I'm going to come back and live here. And I like there were so many great experiences, you know, that made me feel so good about myself. So when I started university, and then I was like, oh, what is happening here? Something's going on with me. I'm like, oh, could I be? Maybe I am. And then I was, thinking through all those other things, and it's like, oh, well, maybe something can happen, so I don't have to deal with it. We have to be so careful about what we ask for because the universe said, I must have really meant it because your heart has to really be in alignment. Your heart and soul has to be in alignment for the universe to grant your wish. So I must have really meant what I said
Well,
because
they say thoughts create things, right?
yeah, thoughts create substance.
Hmm.
And I feel like I manifested this accident within days of saying, I felt like it could have been the next day, honestly. It's like the manifestation was so fast. And I think that alone scared me to a very deep level. So
Hmm.
there was a lot of things I was carrying for a long time, which I didn't talk about, you know. It just focused on the physical um, accident itself. I really didn't talk about the fact that I was pregnant because nobody knew me. And so it's only as I've matured and I really embraced myself that I've come to terms with. Oh, and I did. I'm a chef for the Healers Retreat that occurs in Kenya on an annual basis. And last year, we one of the participants um, offered. Oh, I forgot the name of the thing. I've forgotten the name of the process. Oh
What,
my
it
goodness!
wasn't like ayahuasca or anything like that?
No, no, no,
Not,
no,
not,
no,
oh,
no.
okay.
It's constellation. Ah, I think it's called constellations, and basically it just shows you uh, how where you're placed in your family, what the number of child you are, and when you are born. It all has an effect on who you are.
Mhm.
So I've always thought I was maybe the fifth child in the family, but my mother actually had a miscarriage, so she should be counted. So subconsciously, I would always say, "Oh, my dad had 11 children," right? I'd always say it, but when I did the constellation, I was like, "Oh my gosh!" I always used to recognize the sister that didn't, that I never met, but I didn't realize it was actually important to acknowledge souls that didn't make it in the family unit as well. So in going through this process and learning about the family constellation, that's the name of it, family constellation. As the brother that delivered the word, he was working with other people. And you know how in a lot of group sessions you're working with other people, but it impacts the entire group. And this deep well of emotions came up in me because it was time for me to acknowledge the child that hadn't been acknowledged in me. So that was a major, major relief for me also to finally acknowledge this child that I mentioned before, that he has a place in my family as my first child. And
Mhm.
so, all those things are very necessary for us to embrace and to process as energetic wounds because they stay in our energy system, and limit us in ways when we don't acknowledge these things. And so yeah, sorry, I thought that was kind of relevant. I don't
Yeah.
remember your question at this moment,
No, it's in
but
terms of how do you really become a healer? It's like I said, people
and
generally
so
people don't just wake up and say, I want to be a
and say,
healer because
oh
that's such
yeah,
a huge responsibility
right.
to be a healer,
So
you know. Although
yeah,
we
and so
all
you,
are healers in our own
yes,
way. So I want to,
absolutely.
you
They
know,
all
just
have
make
that
sure
gift.
I'm aware we all have the ability to heal.
Yes,
However, there are some people, just like in any profession, some people are called to be
to do it.
uh,
Yeah,
other things. You know, you might be called to be a doctor, you might be called to be a lawyer, but then some people really call to be healers in the sense that they help people to facilitate their own healing. You know, they don't heal the people, but they don't heal
no,
the person, but they help people to facilitate their
their
own
own gift.
healing. So I wanted that was what I was the
Okay,
question was regarding that. How did you come into being as a healer?
right. And so, sorry, I went off track a little bit,
Oh,
but
that's
yeah.
okay.
So as a result of that accident, it's like traumatic accidents like that, near-death experiences, they change you. They really are trauma, and they change you. And so nothing is the same. You ask different questions. You operate differently because things are just different. And I felt different. I felt like I wasn't whole. And so, and you continue functioning. You heal the physical wounds. You heal some of the emotional wounds, and you can function in the world on certain levels. But then sometimes for some of us something is not quite right. And so for me, because there was something still not quite right, it's like finding out how to fix that became part of my journey. And so, and it manifested in different ways because I had internal injuries. I didn't digest the way I used to digest. And so that's what led me into changing my nutrition, because when I ate plant-based, I had less issues with my gut. And so, and that is refined over the years. I realized, I'm very sensitive. My gut is very sensitive. So I really tune in and listen to, because I'll get rashes, or, different parts of people laugh at me because different parts of my body might itch, my ear might itch, or, you know, a body part might, break out and start itching. So it, the body is fine tuned. And if you're really listening to how your body's talking to you, you can know what's good for you and what's not, you know? And so because I started to tune into that, it just led me to research more and read more because I wanted to understand what was going on, you know? And so um, I was, so again, I was working, when I was living in Antigua, I was working as I worked for a newspaper, and I started writing articles on my spiritual transformation, and started writing on healing and nutrition and things like that. And so it's like I had an outlet to share some of what I was learning and some of my changes. And so from there, that's when I got the opportunity to travel to Israel for a festival. And then I ended up staying there for 6 months. And so then, because I was there for 6 months, they were like, well, what would you like to do? So I said, oh, I'd love to study natural healing. And so they allowed me to understudy as part of the community there. And so that's when I got immersed in, many aspects of holistic healing, from nutrition to therapeutic bodywork to iridology to colon irrigation. Um, what else? I mean, so those are some of the foundations, and really understanding the connection between mind, body, and spirit and the body. Yeah? And so understanding the symbology, the some of the meanings that different body parts have, and the emotions. So the connections for that. And so that was a very, a foundational uh, part of my healing journey to really just get immersed in it. And it's funny because before all of that happened, people would always used to say, "Oh, you have beautiful hands," and I would say, "Oh, my healing hands." And so subconsciously, deep in there, there must have been something there, you know, that had to come, that was part of who I really am. Because I'd always joke and say, "Oh, my healing hands, you like my healing hands?" You know? And so, you know, I guess it was definitely part of who, having going through those traumatic experiences and being led to, get to be an intern and study, under other practitioners was definitely transformational. And from there, I we moved to Ghana, where we lived in Cape Coast, and we had a health and wellness resort there called Asafika. And so I was blessed to work there for a few years and really put into practice some of the things that I learned while I was studying Israel. And from there, I was in and out of Israel for a season, studying more. They have an institute called the School of the Prophets there. So I was able to go deeper into other aspects of healing. And and so then from there, I went back to Antigua, and where I established a center called Choose Life and Wellness, where I focused on detoxification. So I focused on nutrition and colon irrigation there. And so that's where I first started doing nutrition workshops and teaching other people how to transition from meat-based to plant-based diets. And I would do seminars or workshops to help people, as well as offer detox services for colon irrigation. And, and so I did that for a few years. And then one of my clients, she said to me, she was doing the colon irrigation. And she's like, how you end up in this, you know? And so it really played on me for a long time, because to me, it was all part of the learning. I'm learning a range of things, because that's what it is. Holistic healing means you learn different modalities for different, because one thing doesn't work for everything. You need different things for different situations.
And different
And so,
people, yeah.
yeah, different people need different solutions for their um, transformation. So it really stuck with me, because I realized that part of what a vision I was given was that I would do retreats, that I would host retreats for women, you know, and provide different solutions for women's health, for mind, body, and spirit, for the feminine soul. And so, like I said, when that woman said that, it just, played on me. And like, am I really doing what I'm doing? And so it came to a point where I started to be a little dissatisfied, and I'm like, okay, I need to close this portion, because there's something else that has to come through. And I did my first retreat in Antigua. I think it was in 2011, and I hosted it with another beautiful friend and sister. And so it was like both of us had that desire to do retreats, and so we were able to do that. And it's like, but around the time that I did that, I had a dream, a vision, who knows? I feel like it was a vision because I remember it. And excuse me. And the dream vision showed me waking up on this deck where I was surrounded by women, and all the women and
All the women were what?
were pregnant.
Okay.
And so as I looked around, and there was like this green light shining through, it's like the place was surrounded by trees, green healing light was shining on the deck and on everybody. And so I looked around, and I was like, wow, am I a midwife? Am I a midwife now? And then the same friend I told you I did the retreat, that first retreat with, I saw her, and she's like, come help me. And so I rushed over, and there was a woman, and she was in labor. And we helped the woman through her labor, and she gave birth to
Herself. She gave birth to herself. Hmm. Powerful.
And so So the words, the energy that came through that of rebirth. And so
Hmm.
I feel like from from that time until now, I've just been in different versions of a rebirth cycle, really understanding my own rebirth and creating programs that would help other women to go to understand their own healing journey and assist them in part of their transformation to become who they really want to be.
Wonderful.
And just to add that as I became part of the Hebrew Israelite community, I was given the name Tekhiyah. And I'm butchering the pronunciation of the name because when you hear it said in the Hebrew tongue, it doesn't sound like mine. It's much softer. It's more like here. All right. And that name means resurrection. It means rebirth. It means revival of source in the soul. And
Oh,
so it just really like it's like I'm really living my purpose. I was given this name before I had really any understanding of the work I was going to even be doing, you know? And
mhm.
so it's very profound to realize how all of this is connected, and as I'm influenced also by that planetary shift we spoken about earlier in that, the rise of feminine energy, and really just being sovereign, really just taking control of my own journey and realizing the power that I have to transform, not giving my power away to something outside of me, but really trusting that it's within me, that connecting to the power within me is my source of power, you know, and that each of us has that. And so the work involves helping women connect to that and finding where they've disconnected from that and helping to reconnect with that power that's within so that they can rebirth their true self, their joyful self, their authentic self, that their voice, their creativity can come out and manifest in the world. Because as I've been told many a time, we're waiting on you to hear. We are waiting on you. We're waiting on your books. We're waiting on you. We're waiting on you. And it's like, okay, I guess a part of my transformation is complete by us even you inviting me to this platform to share some of my work and to share what I'm doing. And yeah, and just because healing never ends. There's just always levels, but at
Absolutely.
different points of the journey, we get to be squeezed a little bit and we get to share some of that essence and help somebody else along their journey, you know, and that's really, I'm realizing it's part of my purpose, part of my divine purpose is to help other women on their journey and just that balance within so that we can be that divinity. That we are a divine representation of the balance, masculine and feminine energy within. It's got nothing to me, it's got nothing to do with that a man and his personal energy or usurping his power, his position, or whatever he feels he is. It's got nothing to do with that. It's all about accessing our personal power and bringing that enmity that might be within your own soul of that masculine and feminine energy and coming to peace with that so that you can function as a whole healed person on whatever level that might be, you
Hmm.
know,
Hmm.
so that you can have, you know, and more recently, I realized that's about living my best life. That's about bringing in abundance.
Yes.
That's, stepping into my self-worth, my self-esteem, and, being my authentic me, embracing my wounds and using them as gifts in my transformation because every one of them, I learned something about myself by going
Mhm.
through that wound. I learned another aspect of myself that made me stronger, made me more resilient, and
Right.
added to the whole transformation, And
Yeah.
it's not over. As I said, it's
Yeah.
never over because we are infinite beings. We're
Absolutely.
spiritual beings having a human experience, and there are worlds within worlds. There are so many
Hmm.
dimensions and realities existing all at the same time, and
Absolutely.
it's a lot, but the power is that we can just choose one aspect of that and do what we have to do. And once we have the power within, once we are safe enough within to take the next step, then the next door will open, the next opportunity will open. We don't have to go faster than we want to go. You know?
Exactly. Yeah. And I can attest to that with the work that I've been doing with you. I have seen the growth and experienced the growth within myself after, coming to your retreat in the private retreat. I consider it a private retreat in Kenya. And just working with you one on one was amazing. And then after that, just continue to follow up and working with you one on one had profound effect on me being able to, you know, release things that were really buried down deep, and even being able to bring them to the surface and acknowledge them and break patterns, ancestral patterns that have existed in my family for so long. So I do thank you for that, and I can attest to the power of the work that you do. And I would say, just in the process of wrapping up, I want to give people information that if they want to work with you, how do they get in contact with you? How do they go about contacting you to work with you? And in addition to that, I'd love for you to share about your books that are going to be released in 2025.
Okay, well, to work with me, we have a series of workshops coming on that we're going to be doing out online together, you and I. I hope you're going to be there with me all the time.
Absolutely. And it's on Eventbrite. So you can look
Yes.
it up,
So
Rebirth.
yeah, our rebirth seminar for 2025 is starting next on the 12th at on Eastern time. It's 10 a.m. on East Africa time. It's at 6 p.m. Um, and so you can find more information on my Instagram uh, page, which is healing.t at sign healing.t, Tea. And so there are posts there where you can sign up, or on my Facebook page, which is also Healing Tea. Or you can contact me my email at tekhiyah@gmail.com. Um, so those are some of the ways you can contact me to find out more about the work and to attend a seminar where we go through some of the information we shared today and take it a little deeper in some areas, and we'll share some healing tools. So it's be an experiential experience, not just a webinar, not just learning things, but really, I'll take you through some prayers and meditations and some um, uh, energy healing practices that can help shift what your body most needs to release, which is what I really love about energy healing, you know. And um, what else was it? Was that
You
everything?
have two wonderful books, right? The
Oh, okay.
one is going to be re-released because you've already written it. And then
Yeah,
there's
so I
another book
have,
that you're publishing.
yeah, so I have, I'm not sure which way my camera's not sure, but I have
It's
a book
fine.
that I've created called Healing Teas Go Vegan Guide. So the new edition, the second edition of it will be out this year. So it basically uh, is a guide to transition you from plant-based to transition you from um, transition help to healthily transition into a plant-based vegan diet. And I have an accompanying book, which is a raw food book, which is really more of a detox comes from more of a detox aspect. So for deeper healing, for people with who have more chronic situations, they need a more higher resonant frequency of food. So raw foods and fasting and things like that are more detailed in that. It's not a cookbook, but it's a recipe book for these folks as well. But they form two of the books. There are other books that are coming. They've been in the process for a long time. One of them actually is called Rebirth. So it's like a journey for the divine, healing for the divine feminine soul, essentially. So it covers a lot of things and focuses on healing reproductive issues, things that are essentially feminine in nature, which is our wombs, And so it focuses on that and fertility and energy work and just healing and cleansing our workspace and that make us essentially women. Yeah, so those are some of the upcoming things, and as I said, more online work, and I have a series of workshops, series of coaching packages available as well. That more detail, we'll go into that at the upcoming seminar, and as I get my online presence more solidified, it'll be easier for them to access. I'll be easier to access.
And one other thing I was thinking, just in case, I'm sure there's some sisters that are watching that are thinking, do I have to be plant-based to be able to work with you?
Mm.
Okay. All right.
I
Thank
know
you
that
very
actually
and
does scare a lot of people. Right, but I love eating meat. And it's like, it's okay. There's no there's no judgment. It's really about the vibrational. And some foods just have a higher vibration, so it can help enhance your ability to heal and transform quicker. But if you're
Mm,
not ready for that, it's you go at your own pace.
right. Absolutely. And then I would say to anyone that's in Kenya or in East Africa, maybe you have they could get your herbs because you also have your online of tinctures and herbs that are part of Healing Tea's basket, right?
Yeah, yes, yeah, Healing Tea's basket is basically I named it that because I realized because of the uh, broad range of things that um, I was exposed to and that really could just do, and really just effortlessly. And I realized, I've learned recently. I think I saw a post somebody posted, and they was talking about, some people that are just multi-talented and multi-gifted, and some people only have one. So I realized, oh, okay, I've got a few things, and so I bring all of it, to the table. So yes, I do have herbs. I have um, herbs that are associated with gut health, and detox kits that I do, um, gut health and detox. I have herbs for women's health and anxiety. Um, yeah, because creating that safety once again, it affects our wombs, it affects our minds. So there are some herbs that I cultivate as well that I use for my tinctures. And because I live on the coast, I live, close to the beach, which is like a perfect environment to come on retreat.
Yes.
I, the climate here, it's like I had to think of the best ways to preserve herbs. So one of the easiest ways is to tincture them. But when people are here with me, then they can use the fresh herbs as well. So yeah.
Thank you, sister. It has been a wonderful
Yeah.
experience, and I really appreciate you sharing so much with us. And for this will be shared, this video will be posted, but we are having, as Tekhiyah mentioned, there's a workshop slash webinar, and you can actually uh, participate and you can get a ticket on Eventbrite. And we'll be doing it right now. This is for if you're listening to this one, the first workshop will be October the 12th she mentioned at 10
Yeah.
o'clock Eastern Standard Time, and it's an hour and a
October,
half. So,
January.
what did I
You
say?
said October.
Oh, Lord.
October.
January the
We're in 20.
12th. Oh my gosh. January the 12th from 10 to 11:30. And then we'll be doing it on a quarterly basis. So if you miss the one that's coming up, which I really recommend that you try to participate because it's going to be an awesome experience for us all. But then we're going to have it on a quarterly basis. So, and we'll be doing other discussions as we continue to grow and move along on our journey together. So I just want to take the opportunity to say thank you, Tekhiyah. And I'm so
Thank you for
excited
your
about the
festival.
workshop. You're welcome.